Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before I proceed naming out the panel for the day, I would like to give a brief introduction about our chairperson for the session. And okay, I'll just name out the chairperson in the panel. Professor Gishingawa Samtela, Dr. Lata Diokar, Dr. Ujjwal Kumar, and Professor C. Upendra Rao. All right. I'm sure everyone in the auditorium is familiar with the chairperson, and he has strictly asked me not to waste any time in the introduction. So I will just go over and hand the stage to him. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you very much. We have this session, actually, how much time we have now? 2:45 to almost we are on time. Yes. So this session is on literary work and translation in Sanskrit and Pali. So it's an interesting session. The presentations are on translation and literary works?
Yes.
Right? Oh, okay. Very, very good. So, in doing translation and editing works, Tibet has lots of, a very rich tradition to offer. Because I normally used to say that in the entire world, Tibet has done the greatest number of translations, running into more than 5,000 treatises, which belongs to the Buddhist teachings as well as the Indian great masters, and belonging to variety of disciplines. Not only philosophy and spirituality, but metaphysics, epistemology, medicine, arts, grammar, and poetry, and all kinds of, the study materials available at that time in India, prevalent at that time. So the translations done was also meticulously done with a very high quality. And even today, many of the scholars say that it is very difficult to reach to that standard, maintaining both the thematic and literal meaning, because this is very challenging. If you translate something these days, it is easier. If you try to maintain the literal meaning, then you lose the thematic meaning. And if you try to maintain the thematic meaning, then you lose the literal meaning. Unless you keep both of these meanings, literal and the thematic meaning, you cannot get the complete picture of the complete essence of the text. And then, more important thing is that a text, when it is translated, the text has to be translated with both of these, essences being transformed from the, transmitted from the Takit language to the source, from the source language to the Takit language. And just simply by translating the text is not a complete. It is just a beginning of, is the corporal kind of, the body of the text is brought into that language, the Takit language, but there are many more things to be done, the more important things. For example, the Mool Madhyamika Kariga, when it was translated, so precisely, if you look at, compare the Tibetan translation and the Sanskrit, not even a single upasarga, dhatu and the pratyayas are missed completely in all respect. So once you have that corporal body, then the next is the knowledge system, the adhyan parambara. The knowledge system needs to be, because the corporal text has to be interpreted according to the tradition that was alive in India, in Nalanda and other places, right? And that was carried in Tibet through a large number of teachers and students, Guru, Shishya Parampara, and in a very incessant manner. Again, that is not complete. The intellectual part is done, the corporal body is present, the intellectual kind of exercise and the whole tradition of intellectual, the system is brought in. But the very purpose of Mula Madhyamika Karika is to internalize and to be, to meditate and to get those values and change your perceptions. And that is to be done through transmitting the, spiritual lineage. So, in order to do justice, complete justice to a text, even to a particular text, you need these three components: the corporal body of the, text, the intellectual, tradition, and the spiritual transmission. So in Tibet, it has been done, and it is still living, not just only with the one text, but the entire, the collection of those texts belonging to the, entire Mahayana traditions, the entire Mahayana system, and which also includes a large number of, Pali texts and the, Shravak traditions of Vaibhashika and the Sautantrikas. So therefore, when we, these days, when we take some kind of project, then it is taken very easily that one looks at the dictionary and then it is, they try to translate it and it is done. Not at all. It has to be done with taking into account so many important elements. Then only a good translation can be accomplished. So with these remarks in the beginning, I would like to invite Dr. Lata Mahesh Devkarji. She is a visiting faculty at the Department of Pali, Savitri Bhai Phule Pune University, Department of Indology and Tibetology, the Philips University, Marburg, Germany. She is also an Alexander von Humboldt Research Fellow, and her area of research includes Buddhist Sanskrit literature, Sanskrit and Tibetan dictionaries, translation and editing. She has been one of the co-editor in editing Vritti Mala Stuti, edited together with late Professor Michael Hahn, who has done a great contribution in the philological study of Buddhist texts. Okay. So she will keep the time, please. 20 minutes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference and especially Geshe Dorje Damdulla. When Geshe-la came to know about my partial bilingual edition of the Kavikamadhenu, he immediately told me that I should talk in this conference about this influential commentary and its learned author. I hope that I won't disappoint him. I am especially happy today that Professor Nawang Samtenji is the chairperson of this session. And I remember that almost 20 years back, Mahesh and I studied Tibetan in Pune with Geshe-la. And during my 12 years tenure in Sarnath at the Central University of Tibetan Studies, I had numerous opportunities to get Samtenji's advice and guidance in academic matters. Amar Singha's Namalinganu Shasana, better known as Amar Kosh, does not need any introduction to any Indologist or Tibetologist. The work has been very influential for more than a millennium and has been quoted profusely by later commentators of Sanskrit literature. The new Catalogus Catalogorum records a list of 80 commentaries of this text. Jatarupa, who flourished at the end of the 10th century Common Era, is the first known commentator. The latest known commentator is from Orissa, who belonged to 18th century. Among Indian languages, commentaries were written in Sanskrit, Pali, Kannada, and Malayalam. Apart from this, there is at least one commentary written each in Sinhalese, Newari, and Tibetan. In addition to this vast commentary literature, at least 2 adaptations of this lexicon are available, one in Pali and one in Tibetan. Amarkosh was translated into Tibetan in the 13th century by Yarlung Lotsawa Dakpa Gyaltsen. This translation was revised at least 3 times by Shalu Lotsawa Choikyong Sangpo, by Jamyang Shepe Dorje Ngawang Tsondrui, and the best revision was carried out by Situ Panchen in the 18th century. After reading about all these translations and adaptations, 3 questions come to one's mind. How and when the Amarkosha was introduced in Tibet, and why did it become so important in the Tibetan literary circles? I'll try to answer these questions in my presentation. Theodore Zachariah is probably the first modern scholar who mentioned the Tibetan translation of the Kamadhenu in his book on Indian lexicography, published in 1897. In 1913, Satish Chandra Vidyabhushan edited the Narthang recension of this commentary. However, no Sanskrit manuscript was reported to exist till then. Scholars had access to this commentary only through its citations scattered in the commentaries of the Amarkosh, as well as in the grammatical treatises such as Sharanadeva's Durghata Vritti, Sri Krishna Leela Shukamuni's Purushakara commentary on the grammatical text Daiva, and in Sushena Sharman's Kalapachandra commentary on the Katantra grammar. In the 1930s, Rahul Sankrutyan discovered 3 fragmentary manuscripts in Tibet, and T.R. Chintamani found a fragment in the Government Oriental Manuscripts Library in Madras. Rahulji also mentioned that there exists a fragmentary manuscript in the DAV College, Lahore. Out of the 3 manuscripts from Tibet, 1 original manuscript is now in Göttingen, Germany. The Lahore manuscript is now housed in the Lalchand Research Library in Chandigarh, and the Madras manuscript discovered by T.R. Chintamani turned out to be a Devanagari transcript of the Chandigarh manuscript. Apart from this material, there are 3 Tibetan translations done by Yarlung Lotsawa, Shalu Lotsawa, and Situ Panchen. Based on the available Sanskrit manuscripts and Situ's translation, my partial bilingual critical edition of the Kamadhenu appeared in 2014. Now you can see the extents of various witnesses for this text. Although Sanskrit manuscripts are fragmentary in nature, the Sanskrit part is available, only 19.09% commentary is available in Sanskrit, and in Tibetan we have 97.7%. So although Sanskrit manuscripts are fragmentary in nature, we do get a fair idea of the extensive nature of this commentary from Situ Panchan's translation, which is about 459 folios, that is about 1000 printed pages. I do not know any other commentary on the Amarkosh which is so huge, except perhaps Rayamukuta's Padachandrika. A unique feature of Subhuti Chandra's commentary is that it makes Chandra grammatical tradition as its basis for grammatical explanations. Subhuti Chandra is also well versed in other 2 grammatical traditions, namely of Panini and Sharvavarman. His scholarship in the field of grammar is also evident in his another work entitled Subanta Ratnakara, which is also translated into Tibetan, and there are several manuscripts available in Nepal and Cambridge. Another important characteristic is that Subhuti Chandra cites from a large number of Buddhist texts. Many of these are not known to us, not even in their Tibetan translations. For instance, Bhaskanda Jatakamala, Rikpe Khorlo's commentary on Aryashura Jatakamala, Vibhakara Varman's Viveka Katha and Ashubha Katha, so on and so forth. I could collect around 2,100 citations. Collect around 2,100 citations from more than 225 texts from all these witnesses. These citations come from a variety of genres. These are Vedas, epics, Puranas, Smrutis, Laghu Kavyas, plays, prose, Sargabandhas and their commentaries, Stotras, didactic literature, grammatical literature, poetics, dramaturgy, metrics, lexicography, astronomy, medicine, veterinary science, philosophical literature, polity, Kamashastra, and Buddhist narrative literature. And my analysis of all these citations will be published soon. While Sanskrit manuscripts and Tibetan translations made me aware of the unique position of this text in the commentary literature of the Amarkosh, I still did not know anything about its author Subhuti Chandra except that he must have been a Buddhist. Regarding his date, P.K. Gode reached to the conclusion that Subhuti Chandra must have flourished between 1100 and 1140 AD. In this situation, I came across an article by Leon Fendor Quip discussing the transmission of Subhuti Chandra's commentary in Tibet. From that article, I learned that Patsab Lotsawa, the translator of the Arya Sadharma Smriti Upasthana Sutra, discussed by Dr. Daniel Stewart yesterday, had studied this sutra in Vikramshil with Subhuti Chandra. According to Patsab Lotsawa, Subhuti Chandra was a scholar of grammar, poetics, and lexicography. Although the former did not mention any text written by Subhuti Chandra, due to the time frame of both these scholars, Fendor Quip reached the conclusion that Subhuti Chandra, as the author of the Kavikamadhenu, and Subhuti Chandra, as the translator of the sutra, are one and the same. I could find several evidences to prove that this was in fact the case. I'll discuss some of these facts now. From Lopa Kunkhen Rinchen-Pa's biography of Sakya Pandita Kunga Gelson, we come to know that the Sakya Pandita had studied the Amarkosh with Sugata Shri and the first chapter of an anonymous commentary on the Amarkosh with Danashil. Sakya Pandita's study of the Amarkosh resulted in composing a lexicon named Tsiggiter, which is modeled after the Amarkosh. Based on the similarities between some passages of the Tsiggiter and the Sanskrit manuscripts of the Kamadhenu, I could show that the anonymous commentary which Sakya Pandita had studied was none other than Subhuti Chandra's Kavi Kamadhenu. Here it should be noted that Sri Krishna Lila Shukamuni is the only known grammarian who refers to this commentary as Kavi Kamadhenu. We, however, do not find any trace of this title in the benedictory verses, which are preserved only in their Tibetan translations. The colophon to the first kanda, as found in the Chandigarh manuscript, refers to the text in general terms as Amarakosha Tika. Most of the later lexicographers and grammarians either mention the text as Subhuti Tika or simply to its author. Chaturanga Bala's Abhidhanapadipika Tika on Chula Moggallana's Pali lexicon Abhidhanapadipika, which is more or less a Pali translation of Subhuti Chandra's commentary, cites a certain Amara Tika at 3 places. All these citations agree with the present text of the Kavikamadhenu. The Tibetan translations of the Kavikamadhenu refer to the text as Dojo Bamo, which could point to the title Kamadhenu. However, most Tibetan lexicographers refer to the text in general terms as Subhuti Chandra's commentary, and they do not give any name. On the basis of all these facts, we can infer that his commentary was known in the academic circles in general terms and never by any specific title. A second reference to the Amarkosh is found in Jetsun Dakpa Gelson's exegesis of the Arya Dakini Vajrapanjara Tantra, composed in 1210 CE. Here the author refers to the Amarkosh in connection with the 7 varieties of sound in vocal music. He then quotes a few verses which are not found in any known version of the Amarkosh. Fendor Quip remarked that these verses do not correspond to the 2 Tibetan translations of the Kavikamadhenu. However, this is not fully correct, since the verses do exist in the available Sanskrit manuscript of the Kavikamadhenu and do match in spirit with their Tibetan translations. Although these verses are found in all the published commentaries of the Amarkosh, I am inclined to identify Subhuti Chandra's Kavikamadhenu as their source, since his commentary was already known in the Tibetan academic circles. Subhuti Chandra's Kamadhenu also anonymously figures in the commentary on the Tsiggiter written by Nyethang Lotsawa Lodo Tempa. The author only says that a commentary on the Amarkosh was one of his sources. There are a number of passages in this commentary which are similar to the corresponding passages in Yarlung Lotsawa's translation of the Kavikamadhenu. Further, Nawang Jigme Drakpa, the author of the monolingual Tibetan dictionary Khepe Nagyan, and Tsering Wangyal, the author of Ngotsar Norbu Doshal mentioned that Subhuti Chandra's commentary was one of their sources. Tenzin Gyaltsen, the author of Pradnya, says that he consulted the Chiggiter and not the Amarkosh or its translations. However, there are certain passages in Pradnya which could be traced back only to the Kavikamadhenu and not to the Amarkosh or its translations, and not to any other known commentary on the Amarkosh. In the light of this discussion, I am inclined to propose that Subhuti Chandra's Buddhist affiliation, his exemplary scholarship, as well as his ties with the Tibetan literary circle were key factors in introducing the Amarkosh and the Kavikamadhenu to Tibet. Around the same period, when the Amarkosh and the Kamadhenu were introduced in Tibet, we come across Abhidhanapadipika, a Pali adaptation of the Amarkosh done by the late 13th century Sri Lankan monk scholar Chula Moggallana. Just like the Amarkosh, this lexicon gave rise to a large number of commentary literature. Amongst this, Abhidhanapadipika Tika, composed by Burmese scholar Chaturanga Bala, is important in the present context. Although Chaturanga Bala does not mention Subhuti Chandra or his Kavikamadhenu, there are numerous passages in his text which are mere Pali translations of the Kavikamadhenu. At three places, he cites from a commentary on the Amarkosh. All these three passages match with the text of the Kavikamadhenu which is available right now. I come to the conclusion. It appears that after the 10th century Common Era, there grew a tendency in Tibet and Sri Lanka to extend the scope of the then existing literature by going beyond the philosophical treatises and by including the texts that dealt with secular matters. While doing so, priority was given either to texts written by Buddhist authors or to those which held an important position in their respective fields. Therefore, in the field of lexicography, the Amarkosh, the Kavikamadhenu, and Sridhara Sena's Abhidhana Vishwalochana were translated into Tibetan. The first two texts were also adapted in Pali. In the field of grammar, we have Tibetan translations of the Chandra Vyakarana and the Katantra Vyakarana together with their commentaries. Both these grammars were adapted in Pali. In poetics, Dandin's Kavyadarsha was translated into Tibetan and adapted in Pali. In metrics, Tibetans chose Ratnakara Shanti Chando Ratnakara, while Pali scholars adapted Kedara Bhatta's Vrutta Ratnakara. In medicine, Vagbhata's Ashtanga Rudaya was translated into Tibetan and adapted in Pali. It is remarkable that unlike Pali lexicography, which did not flourish beyond the commentary literature of the Abhidhanapadipika, in Tibet, it developed into a full-fledged genre in its own right, thanks to Subhuti Chandra. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nada Devgarji. This has been a very comprehensive and very detailed study of Amarkosha. This is a very important area or genre in Sanskrit and Tibetan studies, because this has been invariably a part of the courses in the monasteries and many places. And there you can also find a abridged form of the Ngunjus, Abhidhanas studied, even in small schools, they start studying and learning and memorizing those, collections, collected versions. So thank you very much. Now we have here Dr. Ujjwal Kumarji, completed his MA in 2004 in Pali from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, and MA in Buddhist Studies 2012 from the University of Hong Kong. Kumar completed his PhD in 2015, PhD degree at Savitribai Pune University, Pune, in Pali under the guidance of Professor Shrikant, and served as assistant professor in the Department of Pali, Savitri Pune University over the last 10 years. Presently, he is associate professor in Department of Buddhist Studies, University of Calcutta in Kolkata. Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Honorable Sangha. Chair, Venerable Professor Samtenji, respected Venerable Damdulji, my teachers and friends. After 2.5 days of talk on ultimate reality, Paramartha, I just would like to bring you on Sansara and would like to focus on the problem of Sansara. Though we are talking about ultimate, but we have to handle the problem of Sansara also. If you escape Sansara, then very difficult to handle Paramartha. Anyhow, today I am going to speak on some Actually, I am told to speak on translation. So, during last 5-10 years, I am working on translation, a very specific Pali text that I called Pali Niti literature. And this whole genre of literature origin and developed in Myanmar only. And as yesterday or day before yesterday, Venerable Panyan Lokaji has said that in Sri Lanka, most of the monks, they start their Sramnira career as remembering Dhampada. And in Myanmar, monks started remembering Abhidhamma Sangho. But I am always curious that, is there any text for Upasaka to start their career, to be a Buddhist? I am a layman, full of impurity, dirty. I always try to seek, is there any teaching for me to handle this dirtiness as a Upasaka? So when I came across a text this like Pali Niti literature, I am very surprised that in Myanmar, there is some text, one text I am quoting, that's the name of the text is Loka Niti, all Sansaric, dealing with Sansaric problem, Loka Niti. And that text is ascribed as a layman text and recommended, or you can say, memorized by almost all the Burmese people. And till modern education system, that text was used in their schools and in day-to-day life. So I will speak something more and focus on that text. Yeah. But before going to that text, I would like to quote one Daniel Bocher. I don't know the pronunciation, Bocher? Butcher, okay, in his one book, Bodhisattva in the Forest and the Origin of Mahayana, a study and translation of Pal Paripriksha Sutra, he said very important line, and as an Indian, I just changed little bit. The history of the transmission of Buddhism, I add here one thing, and development of Buddhist text, has also in many ways been the history of its translation. Regardless of which language the Buddha himself spoke, a source of ongoing scholarly debate, he certainly did not preach in any of the languages in which his purported sayings are preserved. Although not frequently brought to the fore, our corpus of Indian Buddhist texts, be they Pali, Gandhari, or Sanskrit, is a corpus of translations. This is a very important line, that what we have today in the form of Buddhist texts is a translations, and we respect those translations as a Buddha Vachana, like the Tibetan text we have in a translation form, Chinese text we have in a translation form. So could we say that the English text available in translation form as a Buddha Vachana, or the French text available as a Buddha Vachana or not? This is the issue about the translation. But I am not going to speak on translation, but I am going to speak on Niti literature, especially developed in Myanmar. And as you know that even in Buddha Vachana, in Pali canonical literature, there are many verses which are connected or which are addressing to the layman problems, or you can say the verses which are supposed to be the Subhasitas or Niti. This AC is very cold, so I am just in front of Venerable. I am also depressed, and with this AC, it's also very making me cool. Anyhow, So, in front of this, senior audience, people like me is just terrified. But anyhow, I'm just trying to making myself comfortable with this AC. So, what I'm saying that if you look at Pali text especially, out of Tripitaka, only 33.3% texts are supposed to be where the Buddha has mentioned something for the layman. Like only in the Sutta Pitaka you will find some teaching of the Buddha directly addressed to the layman. If you thoroughly see the Sutta Pitaka itself, you will find less than 1 or 2% sutras, maybe less than 2% sutras, which are directly preached to the layman. So there is lacking as far as the Theravada is concerned, the texts or the sutras which address layman issues. So when you see the Burmese condition, after 14th century, they have started composing texts for the layman, and such texts emerge in the name of Niti literature. We have in Burma altogether this type of Niti literature like Dhammaniti, Lokaniti, Maharaniti, Rajaniti, Chanakya Niti, Kavidappa Niti, Niti Manjari, Sutatna Niti, Surasaniti, etc., etc. And one German scholar has did a lot of great work on this first 4 texts. But in the beginning, I just would like to say that these texts are production of verses taken from Pali Sutta Pitakas, connected with the layman problem discourses, and translation of Brahminic Sanskrit texts. Most of the verses are taken from Brahminic text, and they translated those verses into Pali with some time as it is, they put it. Sometimes they change the content, sometimes they miss the content, sometimes they change the grammatical issues or something like that. So, I said here that if the Sanskrit Subhasitas that are the sources of Pali literature are analyzed on the basis of their content, they can be divided into 3 types. The first type includes Subhasitas on a subject matter that is absolutely non-sectarian and secular. In the second type, there are Subhasitas which appear to be insufficiently Buddhist, and the third type consists of Subhasitas that express Brahminic ideas that are contrary to Buddhist thought. For example, if you see some gathas which are non-sectarian and secular, like Pali verse, Mata Veri Pita Satru, Yen Bala Na Sikhita, Sabha Majhe Na Sobhanti, Hans Majhe Bakayatha. I'm just giving you a translation. A mother is a foe, a father is an enemy. Wherefore? Because their offsprings are uneducated in their youth. The children are not shining in the midst of the assembly, such as herons among swans. And just to see the Sanskrit one, is just, you will see that the Pali one is the imitation of the Sanskrit one. Mata Satru Pita Vari Yen Balo Na Patita Na Sobate Sva Madhye Hans Madhye Bakoyatha. And this verse is very famous. You will find this verse in Hitopadesh and in Chanakya texts. Same, you will see the one another example about the young people, quoting to the young people, that Roop Yoban Sampanna Bisal Kul Sambhava Bijahina Na Sobhanti Niganda Iva Kinsuka. They who are full of youth and beauty and have a noble lineage, being of little knowledge, do not shine like the Kinsuka flower without fragrance. And the Sanskrit one is Rupa Yuvan Sampanna Bisala Kula Sambhava Vidyahina Na Sobhante Nirganda Iva Kinsuka. The same idea is just translated into the Pali. Another one is the example I'm just giving here. Chaja Dujjan Sansagam Bhaj Sadhu Samagamam Karapunyam Ahorattam Saranicham Anichitam. Abandon the company of bad folk, cultivate the company of the good, do whatever is virtuous day and night, always remember impermanence. And in the Sanskrit one, the same line, and the Sanskrit one is taken from this verse is also available in Mahabharata and the Janakya text. But I don't know why in Sanskrit, samar nityam anityatam. In Sanskrit also, to remember anityatam, anitya is mentioned there. I'm just, I have some time constraint. Already spent 11 minutes. So I am just going to one of my favorite verse of this Pali. Don't take it otherwise. This is not by version. This is Burmese version. One good example of change we can see in the Gatha of Lokuniti 122, which is the imitation of Sukti Ratnahara. Bhavo yath netaro, sabbe pandit manino, sabbe mahattam ichchante, tesam kammam binissati. Where leaders are many, if all supposed to be the Buddha, if all claim that I am a Buddha, all consider themselves intelligent, and everybody desires importance, their work comes to nothing. And the Sanskrit one is Bahavo yatra nettar sarve pandit manina sarve mahattam ichchanti tad vrindam avisidati. In below, I have just discussed about the grammatical changes or something like that in the problem of transmission or translation the author has faced. One more example, I just would like to, I just missed, that one is very good. Okay, come under this section. The title I have given here is Gathas from Subhasitas, which appear to be insufficiently Buddhist. Okay, sometime what the author has did that they had just add some Buddhist idea. For example, if you see the Sanskrit one, Alsasya kuta silpam, asilpasya kuto dhanam, adhanasya kuto mitram, amitrasya kuta sukham. The Pali one, they just add two more pada that asukhasya kuto punyam, apunyasya kuto nibbanam. That how can there be a skill for one who is indolent, wealth for one without a skill, friendship for one without prosperity, happiness for friendless, merit for the despondent, and Nibbana for the unmeritorious person. So, same verses is just transmitted into Pali, and the author has added one more line. The Gatha, the favorite one which I said, this one is this is from Lokuniti verse number 73, and this is the good example of imitation of Sanskrit source in Pali. Gatha runs like this: Ghare duttho cha musiko. A mouse is a bad one in a house. Vane duttho cha vanaru. Or in the forest, the monkey is stupid. Sakune cha duttho kako. Among birds, the crow is dust. And nare duttho cha brahmano. Among a man, a brahman is dust. This is not my version. The following Sanskrit verse is identified. I have identified this verse as possible source of Pali Gatha, like this one. Naranam napito dhurta. Among humans, the barber is cunning. Still, we believe in India that barber is very cunning, no? And they are just doing new spreading work before this modern media, Facebook and something like that. Pakchinam cheva vaisa. And the crow among the four-footed. Sorry. The barber is cunning. Among birds, the crow. Chatuspadam srigalastu. Among the four-footed, the wolf. And dhurta strinam cha malani. And among women, the gardener's wife, Malini, is cunning. Okay, and this is still Indian belief that these things is going on. So here I have just given some depiction of their grammatical or some change, that this change in the words does not indicate the influence of Buddhist thought, but it does clearly indicate who Buddhists had an unfavorable view of. In the Sanskrit verse, the most cunning among animals and humans are mentioned, but in the Pali version, the first line mentions the most problematic in a particular place and then mention the most problematic in particular groups in the later half. The last line of the Pali version picks Brahmins as the bad ones, whereas the Sanskrit verse says that a barbar is the most cunning among men. The barbars are looked down upon even in modern Indian society, which is still divided by the caste system. The writer of the following Gatha, who is not directly connected with the Indian framework, has replaced the word barbar with Brahmin following the age-old Sravan-Brahman conflict. This is Professor Devkar remarks I have just mentioned here. Still time?
So they will remind you.
Yeah. No, I don't want reminding, otherwise I will last. My knowledge of my Seema is just before reminding. If you remind, then I will last. So I would like to finish everything before reminding.
You want to be mindful.
Okay, thank you. That again is I have just made one title that Subhasitas that express Brahminic ideas that are contrary to Buddhist thought. The Subhasitas that appear to be inconsistent with the Buddhist thought as far as content is concerned can be put in this category. The Pali Nitikaras have tried to remove the inconsistencies and model them according to Buddhist doctrine. For example, just to see this Gatha, Jivantam pi mata pancha vyasena parikitita dukkito vyadito mulho inva nitya sevko. And the translation goes like this. Although living, 5 persons are declared to be dead by the Niti teacher Vyasa.
Your phone's in flight mode, so I can't help you with that at the moment.
I don't know, sorry. Although living, 5 persons are declared to be dead by the Niti teacher Vyasa. One is poverty, one is sickness, a fool, one is debt, and one who serves a king. And the Sanskrit one is Jivanto api mritah pancha vyasena parikirtita daridro vyadito murkha paravasi nitya sevaka. And the comment here is like this. Here the Pali Nitikara has changed the words indicating 5 persons who are as if dead. If you look into the Indian framework, on many occasions, people who went on long journeys would never return. Therefore, writer must have included the traveler in the list of 5. In Buddhist context, it is not proper to say such a thing with reference to a monk who is always on the move. Probably this is why the Pali writer changed the word paravasi, who went on a long journeys, to inva, one who is in debt. Just I am jumping to conclusion because doing with anything more, that the process of translating literature from one language to another is just not a process of linguistic change only, it is also a cultural change. By linguistic and a stylistic study of this kind, some light can be thrown on the process of linguistics and cultural change, and we can gain knowledge about the principles and linguistic techniques adopted by the Pali scholars. So I stop here, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I am a son of Bania, and I always try to save something. So I just saved 2 minutes, I think.
Thank you.
It's also a niti.
Thank you, Dr. Uchal Kumarji. It's very interesting that presenting on the nitis, comparing Sanskrit and Pali, and also bringing the content of nitis. And I think you raised two important questions, that is whether the translated versions can be a Buddha version or not. This is a very big kind of, bone of contention for philosophers, and it is debated. And so that, again, as Professor Bhattji said, another conference for Tibet House and Indian Philosophical Council to conduct later. And then the one, about which you said there are very few literatures addressing the lay people. I think besides the Vinaya, all the teachings are addressed equally to the monks and nuns, the sanghas, and the lay people. So it should not be taken that they are not addressed to the lay community. For example, if I'm allowed, then sometimes there are, like for example in Ratnavali and some places in Chatushataka and many other texts, when the masters talk about the filthy nature of body, about women and things like that, then there arises a question about why Buddhism is very much negative about women and things like that. But it is not women. And right at the end it says the same should be thought about the man's body as well for women. So now, because at that time the direct audience used to be, the monks and some, the Sangha communities, but actually the message has to be messages for all, equally for lay people as well as the, the female community and both male community. So I think, for example, Pragyaparamita Sutra is a big, very large genre of literature which is addressed equally to everybody. So it's not for just the Sangha members, but for all, the audience, to all, the practitioners. So now I would like to introduce Professor Dr. Upendra Raoji. He has specialized in Sanskrit and Pali, and his research interests include Sanskrit literature and poetics, early Buddhist literature and philosophy. He has expertise in teaching of a spoken Sanskrit language. Last year, Professor Rao was a visiting professor in Colombia on ICCR. Cambodia on ICCR Chair of India. He is the chairperson of Center for Sanskrit Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He has extensively written and published books in Sanskrit, Hindi, Telugu, and English languages. He received a number of awards and certificates of honors from various institutions in India and abroad. He also received 3 gold medals from Osmania University and Banaras Hindu University for his outstanding ranks in education. He received Vidya Sagar Award from Institute of Oriental Studies, Kolkata in 2015, and Rashtriya Gaurav Samman in 2016. He has published 20 books and several articles and research papers. Professor Rao was a visiting professor in National University of Cape. I think it's good information for others. Cape Molia Academy at Cape in Ukraine, Moscow State University, St. Petersburg State University, Russia, and Ellen Gumilyur Eurasian National University, Astana, Kazakhstan, and taught Sanskrit and Buddhist philosophy. He was a member of translating the Kenza Foundation's 85,000 project. Thank you.
नमस्ते भाई। यस्य ज्ञान दया सिंधोः अगाधस्यानगा गुणाः सेव्यताम् अक्षयो धीराः सश्रियै चामृताय च। Respected chair of the session, Professor Venerable Geshe Nuang Samten, came from Sarnath, and in front of me sitting Professor S.R. Bhatt, Chairman of ICPR, and also Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdul, Director of Tibet House, and many other professors and students of Buddhist studies sitting in front of me. Today I am speaking about a small note on Mahavastu Avadana. So, this Mahavastu Avadana, when I went to our library, I found this text, Mahavastu Avadana, Sanskrit text. It is not translated yet. It is completely Sanskrit text. So immediately I have taken that text and I started reading with my own interest. I could not understand based on which philosophy and which doctrine it was prepared, but it was very interesting for me. As a Sanskrit scholar, I was completely understanding all the text, very simple Sanskrit. and also not direct Sanskrit, like profound Sanskrit like Sanskrit Shastras. It is, you can call it like Mishra Sanskritam. So I started reading Mahavastu Avadana, and then I prepared one small note on this Mahavastu Avadana, and basically I just I will show you how Mahavastu Avadana is composed from originals today. Mahavastu Avadana is very famous book, text, Shastra, is written in Buddhist, written, and also it's famous in Buddhist fields, Buddhist circles. This text Mahavastu Avadana was introduced to Europe long ago, much before then, because now after many years it was published, printed into Devanagari, and only then we came to know. But before that it was introduced to Europe for the first time by B.H. Hudson. He wrote an article about this text, notices of the languages and literature and religion of the Buddhas of Nepal and Bhot. And he writes that Mahavastu and Avadana Shastra, an account of the fruits of actions, like the karma vipaka of Vedic literature. That's what he pointed out. But some other people say that this is not correct sentence to compare it to Vedic literature. But for me, this sentence appears appropriate only. A manuscript of Mahavastu Avadana arrived in Paris in July 1837 from the Hudson, the same scholar. And then this scholar, Hudson, was the British minister resident in the Kathmandu at that time. That's why he got this text and he introduced to the Western world. Mahasanghikas call this work Tashi, and the Buddhist legends were first told in order to establish ordination rules of rites. Many legends are there in this text. Those legends were extracted from this part of the Vinaya Pitaka and formed the original of our text. The Lokottaravadins called it Mahavastu. It is basically taken from Vinaya Pitaka, but and also it made text. And Lokottaravadins called this Mahavastu. And people say this is the text of Lokottaravadins, basically. And why this is called Lokottaravadins text? Because there is a good description of Lokottara qualities of Buddha in this, very clearly. It is written, Lokottara Bhagavata Charya. Just now I was sharing with Professor Bhatt. Lokottara Bhagavata Charya, Lokottaram Kushala Moolam, Gamanam Sthitam Nishannam Shaitam Lokottaram Munino. So Munino means Buddha, of Muni, Shashti Ekavachana, of Buddha. Everything is Lokottara. What is Lokottara? Gamanam, he is going. Sthitam, just to stand. Whenever he stands, that standing. Nishannam, when he sits. Shaitam, he is sleeping. Lokottaram Munino. Everything is Lokottara. And then that is why all the charya of Buddha is Lokottara. Lokottara Bhagavata Charya. According to Sanskrit grammar, it cannot be Bhagavata, but this is, I told you, this is somewhat Mishra Sanskritam, Prakrit qualities and also Sanskrit qualities. Both are combined in this language. So we have this type of Sanskrit in Buddhist texts, we know that. And Bhagavata Charya means Bhagavata Charya, we say in Sanskrit. So Charya means all activities. Bhagavata Charya, Lokottara, everything is Lokottara. What is Gamanam, Sthitam, Nishannam, Shaitam, Lokottaram Munino? Ettat Sugata Shariram Bhavate, Bhavasya Bandhana Kshaya Karanam. Lokottaram Tadapi Bho Ityastana Samshaya Karya. Means the Sugata Shariram means the body of Sugata also is Lokottara. You should not make any doubt on this. You should not have any doubt on this statement, that when we say that Buddha's body is Lokottara, you should not have any doubt on this. Na samshayah karyo. It's very clearly said. Lokottaram tadapi bhoho. Bho means he is calling. Oh people, this body of Buddha also is Lokottara. Na samshayah karya means you should not have any doubt on this. Chivara Dharanam Munino means when Lord Buddha wears the Chivara, that is also Lokottara. Chivara Dharanam Munino Lokottaram Atra Sanshayo Nasti. Again, is emphasizing Atra Sanshayo Nasti, no doubt here. Aharana Madho. Aharana Madho means bringing the ahara, means alms food. Aharana Madho Lokottarameva Sugatasya. Even Bhiksha of Buddha, Bhikshatanam we say, Aharanam, bringing the alms food also is Lokottara. Deshana Naranagana. This is very important in the Sanskrit aspect when we study as a Sanskrit, because I studied Sanskrit literature very much. So Sanskrit language is used here, but some compounds we never find in Sanskrit literature, only here. Just for example, Naranagana. This word appears very interesting for me. Naranaga means, Naga means elephant. Naga has two meanings, one is serpent, other is elephant, but here elephant is the meaning. Naranaga means a man like elephant like men, that is the meaning. Elephant like men means big people, that is. Naranaganam, Deshana Naranaganam, Sarva Lokottaramata, Yathagatam Pravakshami Mahatmyam Varabuddhinam. Mahatmyam, I describe the Mahatmya Buddha, he says like this. Deshakala Varam Prapya Paripakancha Karmanaha. Satyam va abhinivurtam dharmam deshenti nayakaha. This is all about Buddha only. Lokanuvartanam Buddha anukurvanti lokiki. But in spite of all such Lokottara qualities, Buddhas follow normal life. They look like human beings. That is the meaning of this. Lokottara anuvartam Buddha anuvartanti lokiki. Means they follow the normal life. Pragnaptim anukurvanti yatha lokottaraamapi. Iryapatham darshayanti chatvaraha purushottamaha nocha parishramastesham jayate shubhakarminam. Padanchanama dhovanti natesham sajjate raja. Means they also wash their feet. But there is no any mala, there is no any dirt on their feet. But still they wash their feet like other people, because that's how actually they show like normal human beings' life. That's what described here. Padancha nama dhovanti na chaisham sajjate rajaha, but there is no any raja, means dust on that. Padaha kamalapatrabha, but their feet is actually kamalapatrabha. Immediately some poetry also is coming here again. Kamalapatrabha means very nice simile he is used. Kamalapatrabha means like petals of lotus flowers they have. Their feet is like petals of the lotus flowers. Kamalapatrabha. Yesha lokanuvartana. This is a normal, following the normal laukika life. Snayanti nama sambuddha. They also take bath. Nachaisham vidyate malo. Again, there is no any dirt on their body. Bimbe kanaka bimbabhe. Yesha lokottana. Again, kanaka bimbabhe is a poetic, their body example. It's like one example is given again here. Danta dhovascha sevanti mukham chotpala gandhikam. And they also wash their teeth and all this. Nivasanam nivasenti pravaram trichivaram. In this way, you will find very interesting poetry and such going in this text. Mahavastu has often been translated as a great event. Actually, how to translate this Mahavastu? That became the problem for English scholars. They translated it into great event, Mahavastu. So, Vastu they translated into event. However, what the word Vastu meant exactly is hard to know. Vastu normally in Sanskrit, Vastu means a thing. It is a neuter gender word, Vastu, Vastuni we say, but Mahavastu means not just a great thing. So here scholars translated great event, but it is hard to know what is the meaning of Mahavastu, meaning of Vastu. One scholar, Japanese scholar, Mizuno, he extraordinarily worked on this text actually. He wrote so much information he gave for us. He examines various meanings of it. He examines various meanings of Vastu word. He precisely says, Avadana of Mahavastu Avadana should be taken in the wider sense of allegory. Allegory means Rupaka, like it's a Rupaka we have to take. Including the stories of former births of the Buddha Shakyamuni. We have influence of Jatakas also in this. We have the stories of former births of Shakyamuni and his disciples and other enlightening tales also we have in this text. The basic story of Mahavastu Avadana starts with the great vow taken by the Buddha as a bodhisattva practicing under the Buddha Dipankara in the distant past. It is followed by his rebirth in the Tushita heaven in the near past. And then Buddha's decision to enter Queen Maya's womb to be born in this world. The story continues relating the Buddha's youthful life, renunciation of his worldly life, enlightenment, first preaching, up to his edification activities and information of Buddhist order. This basic story is often interrupted by many other stories, allegories, scriptural literature, birth stories, doctrinal discourses, and so on. So story is there, but there are many legends and many allegories and many birth stories are coming in between, sometimes out of place. But the scholar Mizuno has attempted to reconstruct the original order of Mahavastu Avadana. Sometimes we confuse actually. It starts with one event of Buddha's life and it goes on describing somewhere else it takes us. And then again after many pages, it's a vast text actually, after many pages, again it comes to another event. And also, very interesting fact is we have elaborate description of Dashabhumis in this text. Dashabhumis are very famous in Buddhist philosophy and literature. All these bhumis are explained here, but the problem is in this vast text, where it is starting and where it is ending, it is very difficult to find. I try to put some marks. It is ending like this, starting and also. So, Dashabhumayaha, we say in Sanskrit, it is described as Prathama Bhumihi, Dvitiya Bhumihi, Tritiya Bhumi. But these bhumis have names also. These bhumis have names. There is another sutra separately, Dashabhumishwara Sutra. So I got an idea, Dashabhumis of this text and Dashabhumishwara Sutra of that particular text. One can do the comparative study. So I gave to my one PhD scholar, he is working on this now. The comparative study between the Dashabhumis mentioned in Mahavastu Avadana and Dashabhumi Shastra also. So these episodes are many episodes are there. A number of episodes show interesting similarities to other Buddhist works. For example, the birth stories in Mahavastu Avadana are closely related to Pali Avadana, Pali Jataka texts. Lokottaravadins called it Mahavastu, but later revised and extended texts of the same text, Mahavastu, was called Mahavastu Avadana. Although the Avadana was originally derived from the Vinaya Pitaka, it has lost the Vinaya terms. When you see, it is taken from Vinaya Pitaka, but when you read this text, you cannot find any Vinaya terms and Vinaya these things. So all those terms were lost when this text was in the process of transmitting from Mahavastu to Mahavastu Avadana. All those terms were lost. The Mahavastu Avadana, on the whole, a collection of legends without any connection. So many legends are there. The present form of Mahavastu Avadana must have been composed during the period of several centuries, means not one period. It must have been composed in several centuries, from 4th to 5th century, I think. Scholars came to the conclusion that in 4th century AD to 5th century AD, it must have been composed, this text. The Sanskrit Buddhist literature of Nepal, in the text name is Sanskrit Buddhist literature of Nepal. The writer R. Mitra, Rajendra Lal Mitra, describes the text as follows. This text is an encyclopedia of Buddhist legends and doctrines. It gives an elaborate history of Buddha's life and preaching, explaining every incident of his life by references to his past existences. It also gives a simple and popular exposition of many doctrines of the Buddha's faith. So, in this way, Rajendra Mitra wrote about this text. In this way, this text is very interesting. We can find many completely those verses which are having complete poetic qualities also, like Sanskrit kavyas. We have such verses in them. For example, Yam Padminim Vanarajo Aruhe Kadachit Panke Jalap Pralupitam Madanaturanga Navatvaya Kupurushaha Shrutapurvam. All these very interesting stanzas. And interestingly, some very interesting passages also I find. These sometimes I could not even understand. In 5th Bhumi, these qualities are described. Bhikshuni Dushakascha Bhavanti, Purusha Dushakascha Bhavanti, Shanda Dushakascha Bhavanti. And then Mantra Balena Chapi Parasya Asantam Rogam Utpadayanti. So these sometimes how these are qualities coming in the 5th Bhumi, also it needs research. In this Bhumi, all these qualities are explained. Mantra Balena Chapi Parasya Asantam Rogam Utpadayanti. It's clearly written here. So with the efficacy of mantra, they can create diseases in others. Means unexisting diseases they can bring into the existence. Means they can create disease also with the influence of mantra. Sushilavantaschapi Shilans Chavayanti. Means if somebody is having Shila, they will remove the Shila also. They can remove Shila. Ahirikascha Bhavanti. So, such elaborate descriptions we can find in this text, and also many important Buddhist philosophical doctrines also we can find in this text. So altogether, this text for me is very interesting. If you know Sanskrit and if you happen to read Sanskrit Buddhist literature, you must read this text, Mahavastu Avadana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Upendra Raoji. Your study on Mahavastu Avadana. Actually, Avadana is a very wide genre of literature depicting the various episodes and the lives of Buddha. So, thank you very much for that. So now we have some time. We have about 15 minutes. If you have some questions, we'll be happy to.
This is a question for Professor Raoji on the Mahavastu. I mean, it's obviously a really wonderful text, and actually really, I think, very important for our theme, Theravada and Mahayana, right? Because a lot of these ideas you're talking about become some of the foundational ones for things like the 5 bodies that we heard about earlier, like the Lokuttaravada, right? The notion that the Buddha was always a transcendent being actually is a predecessor to the notion of a Dharmakaya that was never really touched, right? Like so it's really important material for this whole development in the Bhumika system, right? The Dasha Bhumika Sutra, etc. I think to date this text to the 4th or 5th century is very late. It's actually much earlier. There's a new book out by a French scholar named Vincent Tournier. He did a very broad study of this text, and he's done a historically contextualized it, and it just came out this year. So I recommend highly for you, and particularly your PhD student, if you're having him study this. Sadly, it is written in French, but maybe you can find someone who knows French to help him. Another really great book on the origin of the Bodhisattva concept by Bhikkhu Analayo. He explores the Mahavastu as a key source for the development of the Bodhisattva concept, and he takes many of these stories. So that would be really important to read if you want to properly contextualize this text in a broader context. And one more point is that I really don't think it's good to call the language of this text Sanskrit. You know, it has sort of Sanskritic-like elements, but it's really a Middle Indic dialect. And it's quite unique, as you point out, but it's really more Middle Indic. I would call it a Middle Indic text myself, with sort of more Sanskritic-like elements. So anyway, just some of those comments.
Thank you. Yes, I will go from, Bandeji, and I will come back to you, please.
No, I don't have a question. I just want to add one sentence to your very interesting presentation. That in Pali tradition there are two texts called, one is Sutta Sangha, the other one is Upasaka Janalankara. Upasaka Janalankara, which are meant for lay people. Especially contents are made. Upasaka Janalankara is more of that, like worship and the things like daily practices. Sutta Sangha is a collection of discourses like Mangala Sutta, Parabhava Sutta, Vasala Sutta, etc., which are directly related to the lay life.
Yes, Bimalendraji, then I will go to,
So thank you, Professor Chairman, sir. I would like to comment on the paper by Professor C. Upendra Rao. He was discussing about the literal meaning of Vastu. We are also having the same term in our Pali language literature also. We are having the text like Katha Vattu, Viman Vattu and Peta Vattu. If you see the literal meaning of Katha Vattu, here Vattu is in the sense of base. Katha Vattu is made up of two words, Katha and Vattu. Vattu is here in the base and Katha means discourses. The arguments, we are having 1000 arguments in Katha Vattu. So here the literal meaning of base is for the Vastu or Vattu, whatever we are having. Regarding the Mahavastu, the title, here Vastu is in the sense of base of the main events of the life history of the Blessed One, the Buddha. In the same way, if you go through the Mahabhagga also of the Vinaya Pitaka, we are also having the main events after having got enlightenment of the Buddha till the, you can say, formation of the Sangha, and after how the Sangha proceeded. And if you go through the Nalanda Mahavihar research publication, volume 1, Dr. Bhikkhu Jenanand, he has made a comparative study of Mahabhagga and Mahavastu. And he has given a very detailed that what are the similarities of the life history of the Buddha in the Mahabhagga as well as in the Mahavastu. So if you prefer to go through that book, you will find that what are the similarities. If you get a copy of that Nalanda Mahavihar research publication, volume 1, then you will find so many informations, and he has given, you can say, foreign scholars' views also. Thank you very much.
They translate into English, great event. So in this way, event is not correct. Yeah, you mean to say?
Yes, this is in the
English,
sense of
they translate to great event.
yes. And
So you say great base.
Base, no. Here Maha is in the sense of the Blessed One. Since the Buddha was having the 32 types of characteristics and 80 anubanjanas. And since this text deals with the main events of the life of the Buddha, that is why it is called as Mahavastu. Not is the great events, you can say. The life history of the great personality, the Buddha, Mahapurusha, like Parinirvana, we call it as a Mahaparinirvana, in the sense of that it deals with the Buddha. So in that sense here, this is the Mahavastu, that it deals with the great events of the great personality, the Buddha. We are also having
Yeah.
Maha is universal. That is universal.
Again, along with the Lalita Vistara and Padya Lalita Vistara, Mahavastu is categorically, I think, considered to be the biographies of the Buddha. Okay.
Yeah. So I have a question to anyone who, from all the scholar translators present here, and I feel a little nervous asking the question because I'm not at all, from this field really. I'm just a young student of Buddhism. So I have two questions. One, what do you feel is the role of collective translation as opposed to individual translation? And the second thing, I actually come from a artist background, and in my field we think a lot about process and the finished whatever quote-unquote product which is presented to an audience, and we think about this a lot. And there have been different movements where you reveal the whole process to audiences as opposed to something which is, let's say, finished per se. And I've thought about this in relation to dependent origination, that how processes of industrialization, capitalism have removed us from the production of things. And we're just kind of presented with entities not really seeing the relationships through which they have come about. So when I did a little bit of study and had my first taste of translation, my question was, as translators, whether as collective or individuals, when you're translating texts, this has happened in some cases in literature and art, do you feel that there is no need for presenting one definitive translation in the end? That we can present 2 or 3 translations coming from one source and also reveal the process of translation in the form of presenting it to the student or the audience or the reader. So I just want your thoughts on this. Thank you.
I think the collective translation is also a good idea because in Tibet they formulated a rule that every translation should be done in collaboration with an Indian master and a Tibetan scholar. So every work was done with that kind of process. So because one must have command on the target language and source language, and also command on the subject matter. So and for that very rich vocabulary was prepared, and then that also kept on changing, upgrading, and then on the top of that the text which was to be translated was was compared and collated with the other various available recensions. So these days we have in footnotes giving, this is from manuscript A, manuscript B, manuscript C, and things like that. But earlier they did not have that space, the luxury of space in the palm leaf. So they did not put in footnotes, but they collated the different recensions, because in India the major recensions were from Bangladesh and from South India and then from Magadha and then from the Kashmir. So these 4 major recensions of texts were compared, and they were brought to Tibet, and then those were compared and collated. And on the basis of that, the best reading was, made and then translated accordingly. When you said that there should be a definitive translation, the translation, I think definitive translation should be there, but it is subject to improvement all the time, right? And particularly in modern language, because language like English, for example, in Tibetan we have for dental, for pradit samutpad, tenjing, delver, jungwa, every syllable has a meaning. In corresponding with the pratita samutpada, pratyaya, dhatu, upasarga, everything is represented in Tibetan language. Whereas in English, dependent origination, just two words, nothing more. You have to work all the pratyas, dhatus, and upasargas within these two words, right? And then if you have to translate the commentaries on the words, pratyaya, dhatu, upasargas, and grammatical formulations, then you cannot do this thing in English translation. You have to bring the Sanskrit word and then you have to work, comment accordingly. But in Tibetan, you can work with ten, jing, del, war, jungwa. War and the suffix also has a very important meaning. So if we have such a very rich translation representing every literal kind of component of the target language, being represented in from source language represented in target language, then I think there is a possibility of definitive translation. For example, the Mul Madhyamika Karika, all of the translations, but still there are some translations which still require to be modified in Tibetan Tibetan translation. So and in Tibetan, as I said, the jnana for shepa, and then prajna is sherab, and vigyan is namshe, and things like that. For every word there is a Tibetan's, the vocabulary prepared to represent that particular Sanskrit word. So, and also if it is in prose and in poetic in from shloka, then Tibetan version has also very identical shlokas. If it is anushtup, then there are anushtup shlokas in Tibetan, numbering the 8 syllables, and for 9 there are 11 syllables. For 11 syllables in Sanskrit, 11 aksharas, then there are 13 and 15 syllables in Tibetan language. So all the chandras are also have very systematic representations. So, and when you
Sorry, when you read the Sanskrit understood words, we have one style. In the same style, you also have Tibetan?
No, we don't have those. The lagu and lagu guru. We don't have that, but still there is certain combinations to be maintained. Yeah. Yeah.
I have experience of only studying Kavi Kamadhenu and its translations, but then the first translation, the tradition ascribes the first translation to two people, one from Tibet, Yarlung Losava, and another from India, Kirti Chandra. But then, judging from the translation, quality of the translation, then Fendor Quip said that we should not hold Kirti Chandra, the Indian scholar, guilty for wrong translation, because the responsibility entirely lies with the Tibetan translation. And then the next two translations by Shallu Lotsava and Situ Panchan, there was no Indian scholar involved, but Shallu Lotsava is one of the great grammarians of Tibet, and also Situ Panchan. But then Situ Panchan, in his colophon to his translation, he explains in detail how he achieved this translation, and it's just like a modern translator who would do that. Before translating the Kavi Kamadhin, it's a huge text and really very complicated, and there are, even of the caliber of Situ Panchan, there are still mistakes and mechanical translations also. But then he elaborates, like he collected all the manuscripts of the Kavi Kamadhanu in Nepal, Then he went through other lexicons to understand the context. Then he studied Sanskrit with one Vishnupati from Bihar. And then he tried to provide different Tibetan translations for different Sanskrit words, even if in Sanskrit they are synonymous. So he didn't copy one word for all the Sanskrit synonyms. So, and he revised it several times, and I think he took 7 or 8 years to complete the translation. So in that we can see the entire process, and still we say that there is still some scope to revise the translation. So it's really difficult, I guess, to.
Yes, sir. My question is for Dr. Ujjwal Kumar. Sir, you quoted that Gatha, that story from Pali, how, a mouse is bad for the forest, a crow for the birds, and amongst men, Brahmins. So my question is, how deep is the hostility in Buddhism between Brahmins and Buddhism, and is Pali full of such hostile allusions?
Pali Tripitaka, at least, whatever the hostility is there from Buddhist side or not is not too much clear, but from the Brahmini side, hostility was there. Buddha was so many times refuted, so many times people use slang, even in Tripitaka. Later on, maybe due to the influence of Buddha, they converted, they became good disciples and something like that, but initially he was rejected, Buddha himself. And later on, if you see the traditions, especially the Pali grammatical tradition, you will find such type of hostility. And these things happen even in the writing of that literature in Myanmar, where there is no direct connection between Brahmin and non-Brahmin, because Myanmar at that time was not a Brahmin land, but Brahmins were there. And this whole idea of developing of that literature was the influence of Brahmin. And one translator, English translator from Myanmar, Scene 2, he commented on that verse that even the kingdom was, the people were in Myanmar was Buddhist, but the kings always influenced with the Brahmin chaplains. And that is why the Nitikara composed that type of verse. So conflict was there, no doubt about it. I hope I reached to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with this, we end this session. We thank Geshe Dorje Damdula and the staff of Tibet House for organizing this wonderful conference and being chairing the chairperson of this session. I thank all the scholar speakers for their wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. And also the participants, please. Thank you.